Hi, thanks for watching this tutorial about sending billing statements in PracticeWeb. In this tutorial, you'll learn how to send a billing statement to a specific patient or family, give a receipt or invoice to a specific patient or family, set up and create a batch of billing list, view, edit specific statements and remove patients in the billing list, print or email billing statements in batches. We're going to start by going to an individual patient account and generating a statement. To do that, we're going into the account module. And in here, you're going to see up on the toolbar, you have in the upper right a statement button. Now, if you click on this button, it will immediately send a statement to the printer with your default settings. And in my database, it's set to prompt me to choose a printer. But I'm going to go ahead and cancel because I don't actually want to send a statement to the printer. What I wanted to show you is that in the statement button, we have a drop-down list. And if you click on the drop-down list, you will see you have different options for creating different types of statements. You can click on the walkout, and this will immediately print a statement that only shows today's procedures, activity, basically any account activity for today. You can click on the email, and this is going to open an edit email message window, and it will automatically attach any statement to the email. So you can simply add a message if you want to and go ahead and click send. But I'll go ahead and cancel out of that as well. The additional options on here is to create a receipt. When you print or click receipt, it will immediately send a receipt to the printer that will just have today's payment information on it. If you're wanting to print a payment for a previous date, you could do that using the More options, and I'll show you that in just a moment. Then the invoice option. This is used to create a different invoice that's attached to a procedure and/or adjustment. So to use an invoice option, you first need to come into the account, select the procedures you want to invoice for, and then use the drop down and select the invoice. In here, I'll go ahead and hit the View button so you can see what an invoice will look like through PracticeWeb. You'll see that this will be slightly different from a statement. It'll say invoice at the top, and in just a little bit we'll look at the statements and we'll see just how they differ. But this will just show you the procedures that you highlighted and the amounts due for the procedures. It will also show you adjustments if you had selected adjustments as well. But we're going to go ahead and cancel out of that, and now let's go to More options. The last option here, and this is where you're going to come to really control what may or may not show on a statement before you print it. What I like about the More options window is you have the View option, so you can preview what you're actually going to print before, and you won't have to waste any ink or anything like that. So let's start at the upper left with the date. This is pre-populated with today's date, but can be changed to any date as needed. Below that, the Send checkbox will automatically become checked once a statement is printed, or email using the print or email button down at the bottom. It could be also manually changed if you wanted to manually mark it as sent for some reason, but below your mode tells the method of delivery. So if you gave it to them in person, and if you're going to mail it, and if you're going to email, once you've hit that email button, it will automatically switch to email, and electronically is typically when you've sent it through the clearinghouse, who's going to go ahead and send your statements on your behalf. Below that, we have our hide payment options. I'm going to show you a quick preview of how as it is now, and what we see here is that in the upper right I've got a grid with the amount due, the due date. I also have some options for putting in credit card information. If I close out of here and choose the hide payment options and hit view, what we'll see is that those items have disappeared from the statements. You're also going to notice that I have a family selected. So the guarantor is Doe, And each family member has their own grid that shows their account transactions within the date range. If I close this and we could choose a single patient only, we should see Jane's information when we click view this time. So here we are, we only have Jane's grid. No longer do we have John's information. And let's close that. If I choose intermingle family members, what we're going to see is instead of each family member having their individual grid of transactions, it's going to be a single grid with all family members in date order, whatever their transactions are. So we'll see that Jane had all this work done. John came in today. Jane had some stuff done today as well. So we're going to see all of these just in date order in a single grid intermingled, just as it says. The other option is receipt. Your receipt option is going to show any payments that fall within whatever date range you've set here. And when we view the receipt, we see that up at the top it clearly states it's a receipt, and all we have is the $10 patient payment for Jane on the 4th, and that's the only payment we posted to this account. In the upper right, you've got your date ranges, and this allows you to control the level of detail that is going to show on your statements. So the transactions that fall between the start and end date will show in detail anything that happened before the start date, and it's going to show as is single line item labeled balance forward. So let's take a look, and then you're going to see that if you change the date range manually by typing it in, you're going to use the quick buttons below. If we did today and we viewed that, we don't see anything showing up in here. And if we did anything in the last 45 days and hit view, I didn't have any payments for today. So if you take a look at this now, you'll see that John has his grid and Jane has hers, and hers has a balance forward line showing everything that had happened before today, and then detailed line items for the items that we did today. This just determines the level of detail that you see for your transactions. If we close here, if either of these dates is left blank, it means that there is no limitations. So usually if you're leaving the start date blank, you're going to get all the account history back to the beginning of the account, and this can make some of your statements seem very long. So if you want to pay attention to this date. At the bottom, we have a note section, and we have either just regular notes or we have bold notes. And so in here, I'm going to show you an example of our regular notes and our bold notes. You're going to notice bold notes showing a big red font right here. So if we view this, our regular notes are going to show we have on page 2 down here only at the bottom of the statements. Bold notes are going to show at the bottom at that bold red font as well as the top of the statement. So if you have more visibility on a bold note for sure. So let's go ahead and close this. And here I went over to the print and email buttons already. We've used the view button to see how we can preview. You could also have a delete button to delete the statement. If you decide you didn't really want to create it, let's go ahead and delete this. We're going to move on to creating and sending batch statements in Practice Web. We're going to do this from the Manage module, and we're going to use our billing button. The billing list is a way of generating statements for all accounts who have a balance or a credit if you choose. It will allow you to send multiple statements at once by mail, email, or electronically versus going to each individual account and creating statements manually like we were just doing. This is a huge time saver. And in order to send electronic statements, you're going to have to be registered with a clearinghouse that has an ability of electronic statement option. You do have this ability if you are able to in the billing list. To create a list and send them directly to the clearinghouse, it requires that you sign up for the service through your clearinghouse. If they offer it, other things that you're going to need to do before you come into the billing section is to create your billing list. and it's going to be set up to your billing preferences, your billing types, your dunning messages, and your billing filters. And if you've watched our billing setup tutorial, there's a detailed information of how to set up all of those things. The other thing you're going to want to do before you run your billing statements each month is to come to the tools and run your billing and finance charges. If you're choosing to apply billing and or finance charges to the statements, you do that before you create your list. The other item that you're going to want to do before you run your billing items, your billing statements, is if your office is using repeating charges, which is somewhat rare in a dental office, but if you use them, run the repeating charges tool. If you need assistance with this, you'll want to go ahead and call our support line to get help with the repeating charges or refer to our user guide on our website. Once you've done all those items, you can go ahead and click on the billing button in the Manage module. And if you have clinics enabled in your Practice Web database, you're going to have to choose which clinic you would like to send the statements for, or you can do all clinics if you like. I'm going to leave mine to set it all. Now, normally when you come into here, this should bring up billing options window, but you're going to notice that mine came up to a list of bills. What happened here is that if there were any bills that were created and not actually sent on a patient's account, or if you had generated a list of bills that had actually hasn't been sent out, they're going to be sitting here waiting to be sent. What we need to do is either send those or we need to delete them. I'm going to go ahead and delete them though. I'm going to hit close button down on the bottom right, and I'm going to say yes. And when it asks me if I want to delete these unsent bills, once I do that, I can click on the billing button again. You'll see this time I come into the billing options window. This is where you're going to set your billing filters, your dunning messages. Like I said, all of this stuff was covered in the billing setup tutorial on how to set up your billing statements. The one thing I'm going to do here in this window is this date on the upper left, include anyone not billed since. I know that I ran my billing statements last on April 18th. So if I leave that date as the 17th, it's not going to include those patients, and I definitely want to send them another bill this month. So I'm going to set this to the date that I ran my last billing statement, and then come down here and hit the Create List button. Once I do, it's going to generate a list for me of everybody who matched the criteria set in the previous window. I'm going to go over the columns here. The name. This is going to be your guarantor's name, so if there's any other family members, you're not going to see them listed here, only the guarantor. Your billing type. This will be whatever your guarantor is designated billing type. The mode will be the default method of delivery for the guarantor is designated billing type, and this can be manually changed for single statements in this window, and I'll show you how to do that in just a bit. The last statement column will show the date that the last statement was sent, whether it was printed, in person, regardless of the mode, it just tells you the date that the last statement was generated on the account. The balance total column, this is the entire family balance before the insurance estimates, but after the adjustments. The insurance estimates columns is the total insurance estimates and write-offs of open claims for the entire family. That leaves us with the amount due, which is the entire family balance after adjustments, insurance estimates, and write-offs have been applied, so that this should be the patient's portion. Then our payment plan due. If you have patients with payment plans and there is an amount owing currently on the payment plan, they will also show up on this statement list. So this list of patients is interactive. You can double click on the patient to work with them, or you can single click on them and use the Edit Selected button to get to the same window we were just looking at. From that window, so if we double click on somebody, you can make changes to an individual statement here. You could add notes, remove notes, whatever you want to do, you can change the mode. You could do those things to multiple patients at the same time. If you know you just want to select several and edit all at once and change their mode, you can do that. From this list, you can right click and choose to go to guarantor's account. So if you need to review what's gone in the account, that's a quick way to get to the account. Then we can get back into our list. You'll notice that the statement lists that it defaults to sort of alphabetically by billing type. So first of all, my standard accounts, and then all my patients alphabetically, then my email accounts, and again my patients alphabetically. This sort order can be changed to simply sort by the patient's last name, regardless of their billing type. You also can choose if you have multiple emails set up in your database, which email addresses statements will appear to come from. You have the clinics feature enabled. You're also going to have a drop-down list to switch between clinics within this window. You should switch to sent, and we'll cover that in just a little while. We'll take a look at that after we send our statements. You could also, down on the bottom, select all if nobody's highlighted or you just have a few people highlighted. If you use the all button, it will select everyone. This is great when you're ready to send it after you've been working on your list, or you could select none. Now, if you find somebody who's in the list that you actually didn't want to send a statement to, you could double click on them and use the delete button right here. That will go ahead and take them out of your billing list, and that way you're ready to send your statements and or not. In addition to the all or none button down at the bottom, you may have noticed that we have a print list option. This will print the list as we see it here. It will not print the billing statements to be sent to the patients. So if you need to print this list to figure out and if everybody on it should or who should receive a statement, you could print this list and work on it outside of Practice Web and outside of the screen and then our send button. This is when you're ready to send. You've got your list looking the way you want it. You're ready to send the statements. What this is going to do is when you click the button, it will send whatever statements you have highlighted. If they're selected, it's going to try to send them all. If you just have a few selected, it will send whatever is selected. And you'll notice in the count section up above right here that you can actively see how many you have selected. We have selected 15 statements on our list right now. I have selected 5, and if I go back to all I have, all of them selected, and when I hit send, it will automatically try to send email statements. It will also take any of those whose status or mode is by mail or in person, and it will create a single PDF file that we can print out our statements from. So when we hit that button, that send button, nothing is going to print at this time. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to hit send, and I am warned that this could take a while depending on the size of your list. It can take a while, but with my 15 patients, I don't expect it to take that long. It asked me if I want to continue, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And if you pay attention to the account sections over here, we're going to see that we have started to have statements emailed and printed. Our accounts begin to go up. And keep in mind that my email is not set up, so it's not really sending any emails. And I expect that some of my emails to fail, and it generated this PDF file, which momentarily I'm going to minimize out of our way. I will bring this back up in the front, but what I want to show you here in Practice Web is now I have a message telling me that it skipped 4 of these people because they have either missing or bad email addresses. It printed 9, it emailed 2, and none were sent electronically because I am not set up for electronic billing. I'm going to go ahead and click OK to this message, and then what's going to happen is that all the messages or statements that got sent now have moved to my sent list. When I switch over, I can see now that all these people on today's list, they show that are having the statement sent to them. If I'm looking for when I ran the statements prior to this, I could have some changes in this date as well. I can go back to let's say May 1st and hit refresh and see who have received the statement all the way back to May 1st. So I have the ability to come here and see what's been sent. I'm going to just set this back to today. Additionally, if I had sent these statements in my PDF file, it didn't look right. Whatever the case may be. I wanted to undo these and I could select them or I could select them all. I'm just going to do one here and I'm going to go ahead and open it up and uncheck the sent box, and this is going to delete the archived copy of the statement. It asks me if I want to continue anyway. I say okay. Now John is no longer in my list of sent, and he goes back to my sent back over here to the sent ones really quick. And so what I wanted to show you is I'm going to go to this account and you'll see that here's the statement I just sent in the patient's and the guarantor account. I could double click on this. In view, I can't edit anything in here because this has already been sent, but I can view what was sent to the patient. Additionally, I can go to the images in my database. I have set it to put the statements that are sent here in the image module. So I can view the statements here as well and see the history of any statements sent to this patient. The statements that failed as well. So what I would want to go back and go fix the email addresses or whatever caused them to fail to be sent, and then try resending them again. Now let's go ahead and bring up the Adobe document that created with the 15 statements that were going to be printed and mailed. So what it's done here is it's created a single file, but it has statements for all of the patients in my list. So as I page through this, and each patient has their own individual statements, it may be one page or it may be multiple pages long, but as I page through here, I could see all of these, and the print happens from right when the Adobe Reader opens. So once I hit print button, it's going to go ahead and print those statements out, and at which time they could be folded and stuffed, and they're designated to be placed into a standard envelope, and the patient's address would show through the window. This completes our overview of how to send billing statements in Practice Mode. If you have any